this meeting of the Block Island Housing Board on May 27th at 4:15 to order. Our first agenda item is public input. Do we have any? Okay.
Going to do this as public input. I went as a non-housing board member to a Block Island Land Trust meeting, their last one, and I wanted to tell this board how happy I am that we decided to stream and record our meetings. I think it's given us more exposure, and I had asked 4 times for the Land Trust to do that, and they finally put it on the agenda, and I thought, well, great. So I went thinking that was because of my request. Well, it was not. It was because of a request of a board member. It was one of the more surreal meetings or agenda items I've ever participated in Town of New Shoreham government. In that the lawyers were advocating against recording the meetings and streaming the meetings because it would be greater accountability, more exposure, and they would have to act with more decorum. And that basically was the reason why they decided. They didn't even decide. They didn't even make a motion to record or stream their meetings. And they are a huge organization. They meet in this chamber with taxpayer-funded buildings and equipment for that reason. So I went to the town council and told them what I thought of that whole situation. But again, I just want to say how proud I am of the board for streaming and recording their meetings. I know we get very little, we're not ESPN or anything like that, but I think that it's good that we set that precedent. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else?
My name's Arlene Tunney. I'm an architect, and I was asked to look at the plans that you guys have. And I've have 45 years of experience in housing. I designed the first affordable housing for disabled Vietnam veterans in West Haven, Connecticut. And I did some very terrible drawings here, but I think this project needs to move forward, but you need to be able to afford it. And I think if you move some of these units together instead of having them as separate units, that would help. And also, I just sketches which brings the plumbing back to back, because the way it's laid out, the plumbing is going to cost a fortune. These are very bad sketches. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as well.
Thanks, Elaine. And the handicap unit doesn't really.
It doesn't work?
Well, if I was a teacher, I'd say it needs improvement.
Thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, what I did here is I put the kitchen back to back in the double units and move the stair to the other side. The other thing you could do is on the outside units, you could cantilever the stair, which would mean no foundation under it, and which doesn't cost much to do. And then stack the plumbing so that the second floor, the toilets are over the kitchen, and that will save a lot of money.
And is
thousands.
So you have two buildings here.
I just
You just took the 8 buildings and put them together into
just two buildings together.
Yeah.
I mean, so instead of 8 buildings, you'd have 4.
4 buildings. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. So we will talk about that a little bit more in item number 5. Anybody else? Okay. Item 2 is act to approve minutes of the April 22nd meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Take a minute to look at them if. Any comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, they are.
Yes. Yeah.
Next agenda item is review and approve the financial reports. We do not have any this month, so we will pass that agenda item. Number 4 is receive a website update. Chris, can you give us any kind of update on it and an estimate on when we think we might be live?
The update is we've had one Zoom meeting, well, 2 Zoom meetings. I had the first one, then Rosemary and I had the second with Visionary. And it's going slow, and it's not their fault. It's Rosemary and I are just not having the bandwidth right now to respond very quickly, stay on it. We're gathering photos from people, images. I'm trying to keep this extremely simple so we can get it done and then build it out. And so we keep working from a template. And I keep referring back to the RFP. This is how it's set up. We've modified a few things based on Visionary's input, good ideas. So it's still in process. As far as when this is going to go live, at the rate we're going, I have been thinking of 2 months unless some time frees up. Rosemary has said, see you after July 4th, because she's so busy. I have more time, but I'm trying to get that 5/13 finished, and the cabinets just came in calendar, so I've spent a lot of time. So it's just not enough resources to focus on, so it's taking long.
So in that regard, can you send me and other board members things that you might need that we might be able to help with? I have some time, so I could probably give you some help. So if you could send something to me and let me know where I could focus, that would be terrific. Yeah.
There's a lot of questions on how we get information, data, all that stuff, and I'm just trying to keep it very simple. And we got them to agree. We can make it more sophisticated as time goes on, but just trying to caution them. We don't want to oversell ourselves for what we can do. So spending a lot of money on a website, making it very utilitarian and no reason at all. It's not going to look good, and we don't need it. So I'm trying to just keep the balance so it delivers the results that are necessary.
And we could modify it as we go along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So
sure. Yeah. So keep bringing out. We don't have a big budget, and we don't want to spend what we have instead of housing one side.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have comments on that? Okay. Item number 5 is discuss and act on O'Brien Affordable Housing Development and issues related to the development. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for all their work and effort and the success of the financial town meeting. It was an overwhelming vote. I think it was 138 to 22 or 20 or something like that. So thank everyone. Thank everyone who's listening. It's really exciting that we had that kind of support. So again, thank you. The second item there is construction update. So I don't know if you've had a chance to drive by today, but it's down to 1 lane, and they are doing the work on the infrastructure this week. I guess they have one lane closed today, and tomorrow it will be the opposite lane will be closed. But they hope to be finished this week. There is an update I want to tell the board about, and that is I had a meeting last week with Bain, with Jim Jeremiah, with the sewer department and the water department. And Jim called this meeting to make sure everything was in order for the project. And he and the sewer department levied some new requirements on the project. The first was from sewer, and they said that there needed to be, so I apologize. It's not a new requirement. It's an existing requirement that is being more closely monitored and watched and implemented. So they have to do some specialized pressure testing on the sewer system that's going to cost some more money. Everyone acknowledged that the island hasn't been doing those in its road work and its sewer work up to now, but Dylan Chase, the guy from the sewer department, said things are just going to be different now. So that will cost a little bit. So I'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. The other item that changed is in Bain's original plan, he was going to trench out the road to the manhole cover, and then put a patch on it until the fall when it would be the final repair. However, Jim Jeremiah says it cannot be a trench. He has to repave the whole road from where the sewer cap is all the way to the entrance of the development. So, and Jim was adamant. So that's going to be the bigger piece of the expense. And he did not. He said that's just sort of the way he's going to approve it from now on. So.
Well, originally, the timing was set for Bain to do the work, and it would line up with the timeline when Lynch was going to be doing that repair work. Through no fault of our own, Lynch got tied up and has deferred the work until the fall. So I knew about the first thing, but I didn't know about the paving that you just talked about. So, we're going to pave and then they're going to repave, which seems like a real waste.
That is illegal. In the state of Rhode Island, is my understanding. In order to cut down on repaving, they don't want you to do that because it's a waste of money. So we should ask about why not just do a patch and wait for the paving from Lynch, because you're not supposed to repave a project. I think you have to wait 5 years.
Well, I don't know what the rules and regs are, but I think it's definitely worth pursuing a little bit to, push back on that. But also, and I know we were pushing to get this trench work done so that we could satisfy the grant from Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. Would it be the end of the world if we can't get relief from the town on the paving versus patching? Does it make sense to hold to the fall, or Bain's already too far into it?
It looks to me that he's too far into it, and I'll clarify, it is still a patch. The way they describe it, it's just a bigger patch. It will still need to be repaved.
Okay. So what is,
So,
translate that into dollars?
so translated into dollars, Bain thinks it'll be less than a 20K difference in the project because he has already got some savings from repositioning or I'm not sorry, not repositioning, but using the existing manhole. That's what they recommended to us, and so they moved forward with that. So there was some savings there, but this is probably going to eat up most of the savings, maybe a little more. So I don't think it's a huge budget driver, but it is going to cost a bit more.
So the original number, I think that you had mentioned was like 30.
Yeah, talking to Bain, it's going to be more, I think it'll be between 10 and 20.
10 and 20.
Yeah. Anybody have any comments? Again, I can't point to a regulation that Jim was citing. I guess what he said is he's not going to let the project go forward if it's not done this way, so.
Late for that.
Yeah. This was last Friday or Thursday, I guess, is when we had this meeting.
What do you think, Josh?
I drove by there a few times today. I'll admit I did not stop and get out and have a closer look, but I'd like to probably just pop in there tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I'm having a hard time visualizing what Bain is doing versus what Jim Jeremiah would like to be done. My understanding is that they were just going to cut a swath of the road out and then they put the temporary patch in, which is what they always do. Rides out the summer like that, and then they do a full repair curb to curb.
Right. So in this instance, the patch is instead of running diagonally from where it's entering where the sewer is entering the property, and it would run diagonally to the manhole cover. It's going to now be patched. The whole bit is going to be patched.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Jim would not allow the diagonal patch with a short width.
Yeah, so he wants it all the way across the road. No, they haven't cut all the way across the road, though, have they?
Not when I was there at 4:00.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that he wants that done. I'm more surprised that he didn't say that sooner. Yeah. But it's not an unreasonable request.
I think what happened is they didn't look at the revision that was done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I think that's the case because ostensibly he would have said that at the very beginning.
Yeah,
But because we were lined up with the Lynch repaving job, which was a driver in this whole thing, that's why we started this whole thing, is to get it done before the road was going to be repaved so that we would not have a patch job there.
Yeah.
so Bain feels like with the money saved using the existing manhole versus the money spent to do the extra patching, we're going to kind of come out in the wash.
Yeah. Yes. Not quite completely come out in the wash, but close to it.
Close, yeah.
As a percent of total project, it will be small.
Yeah, and the benefit ultimately of doing it the way we decided to do it was so we'd have to shut down the road. That was, I think, the real driving factor there.
Yeah.
So.
So if you want to take a drive by tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'll stop by in the morning.
That being said, I don't know, do people want to intervene with Jim Jeremiah now, tonight, today? Because by tomorrow midday, the project will be far along.
This is a disappointment and certainly an extra financial burden. But I can see how it transpired. I don't see the need to point fingers at anybody. It's just the way the timing worked out. And I think it's important that we end up with a job that the sewer company, the water company, and Jeremiah are going to embrace. So for $10,000, I would say move forward.
We should ask to know if there's any other surprises. Seriously, that's a good. Anything else?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you have any extra input tomorrow, Josh, as you go over there, just let us know.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Otherwise, we'll just keep it on schedule. Okay. The next item is architect input. And Arlene has been kind enough to already give us some thoughts. I know Chris, you had some contact with Sam Bird? Oh, hi, Sam. Nice to meet you. And um, my understanding is that they'd be willing to give us some thoughts on how we might do things differently. So we designed the buildings a couple years ago, right? 2 or 3 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe. Um, we have had some input from both architects as well as some other people saying that, you know, that the buildings might not look like Block Island too much. Maybe they need a bit of a revision. So I guess a question for the board is, how far do we want to go with this? And a threshold question to me is, are we willing to open up the zoning process? That's a key question. And how do people feel about that?
Qualified, but yes.
So, to me, my understanding is that we wouldn't be able to change the footprint. And that's all I.
Right. So yeah, we couldn't change the size of the footprint, but we could change the designs of the building. That being said, if people like Arlene think there's enough cost savings, it may be worth it to go back to zoning. I don't know.
My opinion is, we started off with Barbara Bester. And by the way, Barbara is still actively interested and willing to do great input. And interestingly, Arlene, excuse me, when Barbara first started with us, she had very much the same type of approach with us, more units in larger buildings. And the board at that time basically said, oh, that doesn't look like Block Island. And, we wanted it to fit into the landscape. So Barbara really did start us off in a direction that would have been more affordable. And we went in a different direction. It's taken us 3 years to realize we don't have the money. And my feeling right now is, given the action at the financial town meeting, we now have a realistic budget to push against. Whereas before we were kind of designing in a vacuum, saying this is what we want, this is what we need. And then you get the estimates of how much it's going to cost. And we were all like, whoa. And then we didn't get money from Rhode Island Housing. So here we are. But now I think we have a much more realistic financial footing. And my personal feeling is that I would like to see the whole design usage of, whether it's rentals, whether it's single family houses, whether it's for sale. I would like to see that reopened for discussion, because I think that we really can come up with a plan that will fit our budget, based on some input from architects, based on the reality of our finances. That being said, that's a long enough process in itself, to redesign the concept. But I really think that's what is called for at this point, personally. To then have to go before planning and zoning is another headache, which I would love to be able to not do. So I guess my preliminary question is, we have zoning planning board approval for 8 footprints. My understanding, not in writing, but from talking to representatives of planning, if we use those existing footprints that were approved, we can change the interiors, we can change whether it's for sale, whether it's for rent, we can change that. If we decrease those footprints, no problem. The problem would become is if we were adding more units or increasing the size of those footprints. Then we are back in front of zoning and planning. And engineering too, because if that changes the roof line, water runoff, then we have that. So
Say that again, adding units or.
adding
Or
or
making them bigger.
or making them
So
bigger.
if we're not adding them or making them bigger, this design might work.
well, or any design on that
footprint-
footprint, on those footprints.
But the footprint doesn't have to be in the original plans, like where they are now.
No, they have to be relatively sited where they were.
So
Yeah.
for
So-
instance, if we adopted your idea, Arlene, we would have to go back to zoning.
It's just an opinion, but I think that there's so much good opinion about doing this that I don't think it would be a problem. You're not building a giant skyscraper, number one. Number two, there's a project that was built next to the Hodge property, and it's small little, and it looks like a city. So I think that planning would rethink having 4 units together rather than lots of little ones, because
The problem is if it's a 2-year process, that's where.
not if you were just revising your plan.
But I think that we do need to design to a budget. Because we didn't do that the first time with that awareness, that full awareness. And, we could very easily do that again if we are not able to move fairly quickly as prices get higher and higher. Even now, the estimates that we got for the existing plan are substantially higher than what they were quoted originally. So I think we need to re-examine and with an open mind how we can make this more cost efficient, both from how many rentals, how many sale units, and how we can build them.
And this is what we're gonna go over to help us understand our budget.
Yes, yeah. Any other thoughts on that topic?
Just not in favor of changing the building location and the footprint, because I think we should try and get these units go quickly and affordably. So with architects helping out, with contractors, if we can use value engineering and in specifications, Sam's pointed out some of our specs for items could be changed for improvement. Also, I think that if we form a relationship with Church Community Housing and their construction techniques, it will really decrease the cost of what we're doing, but we haven't yet gone down that road. So anyway, I don't want to overcomplicate this, because I think that if we try to redo the siting, we will have to go through another 2 years. I don't think people gave us the vote of confidence to delay it by another 2 years. We still have to build it. That's going to take years.
Yeah. That's why I would like, if we can work on what was approved, those footprints, I think that would be great.
That's fine.
Yeah.
One of the concerns I have is just, I think Mark, you said it earlier, the one size fits all approach that we have going on here. I think as far as a building go, I mean, I don't think they're particularly attractive, but I think they were designed with economy in mind. They're very simple, straightforward buildings. There's no frills, there's no jogs or fancy architecture going on or details. So I think all in all, the structure itself is probably as simplistic as you could make it from a construction standpoint.
Boxes.
They're boxes.
Yeah.
I am a little concerned with just the fact that we have like 16 units. They're all 2-bedroom. Like, most people, if they're going to have a family, might need it. I just look at the West Side 20 and you got some houses, 4-bedroom houses, you got one person living in the whole house. But then you got some of them that are packed with people. And I just wonder, and I don't have a solution. I'm just saying this out loud, but one size fits all, like how well is it going to work, and I don't know what that answer is. If we're able to play with these a little and maybe have a 1-bedroom apartment, but maybe also have some 3-bedroom apartments. Maybe it's not possible, but
I agree. I don't want to go back to zoning, and planning. So I'm wondering, do our architects have any other ideas on how we could approach this project and make it more efficient, I guess, more, I don't know, attractive, maybe different roof lines. I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts, Sam? Or I know Arlene, you gave us, that's your big thought is.
Yeah, I mean, just by introduction, for those who don't know me, Chris and Cindy do. I'm Sam Bird. And I guess first, full disclosure, I live about one lot away from this project, so I will probably look over the trees and see the top of a couple roofs, but that's fine. I think this is a good project, and I offer congratulations on the vote. That was terrific. It's one thing to get the vote, but it's another thing to get it 3-1. That says something. So anyway, congratulations. No, I've been back and forth with Chris, and I had just dropped a few, literally spent maybe 45 minutes looking at some of the information, and just some things popped out at me. So I just texted Chris and said, here's some things that come to mind. One of them you stole from me already was, can you slide a bedroom from one unit over to the other and have a 1 and a 3 instead of 2 2s, so you don't have as you say, the one size fits all. So you're already on that. I just wanted to offer, I only came down just to offer some, as they say, an anchor to windward, if you want. If there are questions, if there's technical questions, more than happy to answer them. I have 2 real requirements. I don't want any money, and I don't want a job. So I'm going to be firm on both of those. But other than that, I mean, I'm a retired architect. I designed and built our house here on the island, and it's probably one of the few houses on the island where you can turn the heat off in October and go away, and it never goes below 40. So it's a greenhouse. It's hyper insulated and all that stuff. So I kind of learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work. I think one of the cautions, big picture cautions, as you move forward, that I would say is that because these are going to be rental units, you're going to continue to own them. So I would look not just at first cost, but also at operating and maintenance and long-term cost.
Mm-hmm.
You may very well find it's worth spending some money now, although it may not be money you have, which is a whole other issue. But it may be worth spending money now to better your ongoing maintenance and operating costs. Other than that, I just wanted to come and say hi.
Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate that.
Okay. If there are any specific questions, I don't know whether you shared the list I sent you with the. Okay. I don't have much thunder to steal, but let's see if I can find it and see if there's any, refresh my memory and see if there's anything of import. I had some very minor comments on some of the things in the specs, like Toto toilets and, I mean, my recommendation always on Block Island is to go with the standard stuff, the stuff you can get parts for easily, There's plenty of stuff to choose for that falls under that category. Storage, I think, is a big one. As I noted to Chris, all you got to do is drive through West Side 20 and see how important storage is. And are you anticipating full basements under these? Yeah, you are, because one of the sections I saw had a crawl space, yeah. So so you definitely want that. And would there be a bulkhead to the, I didn't see bulkheads.
There's nothing drawn on the plan, so we're either gonna have to figure out a stair from the first floor or put bulkheads off the side.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean, I don't want to get lost in tiny town on this stuff. Thermal performance, I think you really need to look at that. I would go beyond code minimum by all means. I gotta be kind of honest, I don't think you guys have already mentioned it, so it won't come as a shock to you. Not sure these are, as my grandfather used to say, I don't think these buildings handsome much. But it sounds like you're already aware of that and are thinking about doing something about it. I had some minor comments like interior trim and MDF. Not a great idea on Block Island. It's usually mush in a few years. Solar, I don't know what you plan to do for solar, but it looked kind of like the roofs were sort of, okay. So, that's great. That's right. Right, right. I mean, you may want to consider at least installing the tubing for radiant. Maybe just on the first floor. Because you can do heating a lot more efficiently with radiant, which operates at a low temperature. So you can do the air to water heat pumps. If that's the way you're headed, a lot more efficient than the mini splits. Probably cost you a little bit more. Probably not much. I don't know. Those are some of the things. There's some minor stuff about kitchen cabinets and windows. Most people on Block Island do not realize that you don't have to put in impact resistant windows.
Thought that was.
I didn't realize that.
It's not the code. It's not the code.
Impact resistant.
However, there are a bunch of caveats. In order to not be required to put in impact resistant windows, you have to structurally design the entire structure as what they call partially enclosed. So in other words, you have to design it so that the wind is acting on it as if all those openings are open. Which is the idea behind the impact window, is to not let them get open when your neighbor's Weber grill comes flying across the yard. So you can design the building that way. A simple building like this, it's not that stringent a requirement to meet structurally, and you can do it. The caveat is you're going to own these places and you're going to probably wind up insuring them. And the insurance companies may either walk away from you completely or jack up the premium exponentially.
Without the impact windows.
Yeah.
Without the impact windows. And the other issue is, people forget that the building code is not a building preservation code, it's a life safety code. So it's not designed to protect the building, it's designed to keep the people alive inside. So it's designed to not let the building collapse on them. So the building code doesn't care if all your belongings are trashed because the storm came in. It just cares if the roof flies off. So, and kills somebody. So that's something to consider. And you may not have a good enough financial crystal ball to determine what the insurance market, I don't think anybody does, even the insurance companies, what the insurance market's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years when you're still going to have ownership. So
And it's currently not very robust right now. A lot of people having trouble already.
exactly. Older buildings.
That's a very interesting point, which I never thought about in relation to this project.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, it may behoove you. I'm not necessarily recommending that you forego those windows and design it, as partially closed building. I've always asked the question of code inspectors. I've said, well, you've got a building that's designed to be, to stay together as long as all the openings are closed. What happens when, Rover comes home and you open the front door to let Rover in and you let the storm in with Rover? And nobody has an answer for that. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't really comport well, but that's a major, as we all know, impact resistant windows are a major expense. My house is 10 years old. I don't have them. I elected not to. And I've got, I probably, well, I built it myself, so it's not a fair number, but I probably only spent about $3,000 beefing up the structure to meet a partially enclosed versus fully enclosed. So anyway, that's probably a big money issue, but you have to look at future costs, not just present costs. I would really caution. Anyway, so I just wanted to come and say, I'm happy to help. I think you're on a great cause. Again, congratulations. Looks like 3/4 of the island thinks you're on a great mission. So onward and upward.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You.
Go ahead. Arlen said, but we have to, if we take road out of housing money, we have to go to a certain standard use and certain, instead of durability and all that. So do you think that is incongruent with the value engineering that you think is possible?
Well, I think on the window issue, it may protect the people inside, but they've just done a whole bunch of studies. Anderson Windows has seminars that are online. And in the case of a hurricane, an opening that blows out, a window opening that blows out, that's what takes the roof off. So that the insurance company is very concerned about that. The one thing I want to leave you with, I have to go and walk my dog, but all our professional magazines now are talking about increased costs because of the tariffs. And whatever you have, most of the lumber comes from Canada. Components come from China, and I don't have to tell you that it's going to be very hard establishing a budget.
Asked about, have you done any landscaping? Do you have a landscape plan? Are there going to be trees to hide this from the road? And so there's some of that input too that we'll eventually have to think about.
Well, landscaping has come up with the other projects that we have done. And just from past experience, by the time you get to landscaping, we are dead out of money. It's really critical. It's really important. You know, we had a minimal budget on Cherry Hill. We had a minimum budget on, Coast Guard Road. And, you know, in a perfect world, it would be great, but I think it's something that, I was just up at Cherry Hill, the other day, with Shannon and, taking some photos of the houses and the occupants for the website. And, you know, there's certainly more room there.
Mhm.
And I was thinking or dreaming or hoping of the day when the housing board has enough discretionary funds that we could say, hey, Cherry Hill Housing, Cherry Hill Homeowners Association, here's a gift from the housing board for
Sure. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
So, so just that,
but I think, you know, it is a part of our budget, has to be a part of our budget, but it's a drop in the bucket for what
right.
we would like to do.
Some of the ideas that we had with this from when I first got on this board was that we were going to create green spaces for gardens and for families. And so the landscaping, as far as, you know, I would say expensive shrubbery kind of, I think, is a backseat to creating a better environment for people to be outdoors and do those kind of things. And if you look at, I'll say the medical center, that project received donations for their landscaping, which is pretty elaborate, in my opinion. But that does lead to the knowledge that people may want to make donations of that to help us. So just keep that in mind.
That's a good point. Thank you. And one last point, to Josh, the point you made, this 1 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, I put a lot of thought into this before the financial town meeting, and it's a really interesting question, because ultimately, if we, in a lottery type situation, even if we built a 3-bedroom situation, one person might be in it. I don't know how we're going to get to create that lottery and to limit it, and how we're going to run it. As you said, I didn't know this, but as you said, in the West Side 20, there was one person in a 4-bedroom place. So we just need to put some more thought into that, because both upfront, but also as we get to the lottery point down the road, and how do we want to constrain what units people apply for, and can we even constrain what people put in for the
We
lottery?
did that last year. I mean,
Last time, okay.
Cherry Hill, because we had different price points for the smaller units, and
Perfect.
so people would then become qualified for that price point. So we did those 2 separate lotteries.
Got it.
Which is certainly an option.
Perfect.
It was a group of people for 3.
Got it. Okay.
You applied for that.
Because this idea of moving a bedroom over and creating a 3 and
Well,
a 1
like
is,
Sam said,
yeah.
I think
Interesting.
without a whole lot of changes, you could slide in one of the bedrooms and make a 3-level and or 3-bedroom and a 1-bedroom without going too crazy.
yeah. So I think that,
The way we got backed into the floor plan, originally was, that repetition, and, consistency was going to keep the cost down.
Mhm.
That, you know, when these boxes are going to be, made, if every box was different, you know, it ups the price. But because it was replicated, the same floor plan, the same everything, that was supposed to be a huge cost savings. And we also theorized that for most people, we were talking about rentals at that time, for most people, a 2-bedroom rental is pretty adequate. If you're a single, you could have a roommate, or you could have an office, or you could have, you know, a guest room. If you were a young family, you know, usually you can get by with the 2 bedrooms for quite a while. So we kind of backed into it that way. Whether that's valid or not.
Maybe
That's-
we could
That's what we thought.
do 3 versions. I mean, the ADAs have to kind of stay 2-bedroom just because of the way they're done on single levels. Maybe we could have the ADAs and then keep this existing design, and then, you know, if we did 2 full buildings with a 3 and a 1, and that would bring us up to 3 designs versus 2. Yeah, it would
Yeah.
cost more.
Yeah, I think, again, I think that's part of the process that I would like to see us engaged in trying to, you know, rethink what the function is. And I would again put a strong word in that I'm a very strong proponent for sale units for many reasons.
I don't see how we're gonna fund any of this if we rent these things.
All right, so that's the next item. So I asked Keisha to print out these numbers here. I think everyone has a copy. I had a meeting with Rob, and Rob has agreed to run through them and see how much sense they make. These numbers are put together by Chris with a little bit of my input, and this is what we showed the town council. It's one of the options we showed the town council. So this option, if you look at it, is 8 rentals and 8 sales. It is an option with no Rhode Island Housing Grant, but we get the town warrant, which we have. So you see the capital funds there. We're using our internal funds. We're using our bond funds. We have 8 sales units at what, 225, I guess, 250?
I have it. I brought the spreadsheet. Let me just tell you. 225.
Yeah, so 1.8 million. We have the town warrant. So there's in year, so the first year is the internal funds, the Block Island Housing Board, 1.6 million,
$2 million bond.
$2 million bond. Third unit, the third year, 2027, the third line is 2027, and it has 1.8 million capital from sales. The next line down is the town warrant. The next line down is the infrastructure bank. The next line down is the Rusa Foundation. And the next line down is the solar initiative. So that's the capital. Then there's income.
So when we jump over to year 3 at 2027, the 2,182,000, what is that?
That's the sum of the 1.8, the 150, and the 232.
So we get to add the 2,182,000 to the 6 million? Right, for a
Yes.
total of
Yes,
8 something?
correct.
Okay.
So down in the income section, we have our 1% rental tax. We have tenant rents beginning in year 4 at $950 per unit. That's just an estimate in there. And then we have utility costs for the rental unit.
We don't have insurance costs in here.
Yeah.
We don't. So
Let's just hypothetically say there were 8 rentals and 8 for sale units. I'm kind of thinking, you know, you'd have 2 homeowners associations.
yes,
The homeowners that own would be paying whatever HOA fees, which would go towards the landscaping maintenance. And we would be forking over our homeowners association fees on behalf of the 8 rental units. So
Correct.
that's also missing here.
yeah. We have utilities in there, but again, all these numbers we need to ask Rob to run through and see if they make any sense whatsoever. On the expense line, we have the infrastructure work, the 1.25. We have construction costs there at about 6.5 million. That could change wildly depending on estimates we get.
So that 6.5 million is just kind of our best guess.
Yes,
Yeah,
yep,
best
yep.
guess.
It's inflated from the I think it's inflated by 20% from the bids we received. That's what Chris did.
That's good.
Yeah,
Thought
so.
is in.
Chris put in an operating expense and reserve line.
So that does start to pick up some.
Some of the insurance and yeah,
Expense.
yes, yes. But I don't know how much. I mean, it's. And then there's our debt financing. So we have to finance the bond, our own bond. And then I put cash flow, or Chris put cash flow by year and a cash flow cumulative. So based on these numbers, we're positive. So.
Let's do the victory dance.
So, but you know, I can make any numbers come out positive.
Statistics can be fact.
I was joking with Rob. So I used to run a $10 billion budget for the Department of Defense for an agency. And I could tell you if a program manager came in and said, here's my line for a missile. And I could throw the BS flag straight away. There's not enough this in it. There's not enough that in it. You just didn't do it right. But with this, cannot do it. So, we need some help. So anyway, those are the numbers that we've been working with since the town council meeting. And we have the numbers out to 20 years, but they're so fake that it doesn't matter at this point. But it gives me reasonable confidence that we can do this based on 8 rentals and 8 sales. The numbers based on all sales are even better, right? So this is not a bad picture. And this doesn't count a Rhode Island housing grant, which I wanted to talk about in a minute. But anyway, so that's where the numbers are at this point. And they're there thanks to the town warrant vote. So any questions or discussion?
Well, I think based on some feedback I've heard from people about our project, a lot of people are advocating for rentals too. So I know that financially, selling the homes would be better for the housing board, but I don't think it would be better for Bluff Island. So that's.
I believe that Allison, and I'm not sure if she reported back at a meeting that I may have missed, but Allison Carley contacted everybody that we had on our list. And one of the questions that she did ask was, rental or home ownership. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it would make sense to get them. Okay. Okay. And I feel like it was heavily weighted towards sales, and much lighter for rentals. But I believe that was kind of just a moment in time of that group of 82 people over the phone. But I think that's also a pretty good showing of needs, at least based on who we have in hand. I mean, there may be a bunch of other people out there, Chris, that aren't on our list.
That was something that Dory asked me about. It's like, why don't we actually ask the town employees, the water sewer entities, anything that we can think of that represents people who would qualify for our housing, what they prefer. Now, I understand that's a huge sphere, but why don't we start by going to the town employees, water, sewer, the power company? Boy, they didn't support us, but there's still people that are eligible for our housing project, so we should ask them. And so I think that was a good idea because we don't have good data, right?
So we do have some town employees on this list. We have 5 people that would want to rent exclusively on the list. We have a list of 52 people now. She narrowed it down to. Majority wants to own.
Yep.
And then we have about 10 people that would want the option to rent or own. So they're like, we need housing, so we don't care if it's a rental or purchase, but 5 people that would exclusively want to rent.
Okay.
And not buy.
So that's 25% rentals, the rest want ownership.
I'm not opposed to rentals. I just feel, for the long-term health of the island, having people that have actually bought a home and have a vested interest in the island and in that home, is really good for the island. And I also feel that the 513 program feels like it's getting some traction. And 513 is, such a cost-efficient way to deal with rentals. So, you know, I really think anything we can do to help foster 513s is a no-brainer. And if that program can take the pressure off the rental market.
Yeah.
Which I think it is. Yep.
Which I think it will.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
That's a good fix.
And then for the house, the other thing is, when I look at the situation that East Earls Fall is in right now, and I defer to Rick and Chris and Mark, but East Earls Fall is 16 units. It's close to 40 years old, and their rents are market value. The federal government subsidized the shortfall of the tenants' rent, and they are so far behind the 8 ball in terms of their ability to maintain that property. Don't even think about landscaping.
But
you know,
that's them.
I know, but
So I don't think
I'm
it's
talking about
good
the
to-
money, Chris. You know.
Yeah, but in the pro forma, we put in a maintenance.
That's what I'm
budget.
saying. So if I can't understand, you know, will this be enough for us to do it? Because I don't read it very well. So I'm just saying, if we go with rentals, we have to be really sure that there's a significant reserve, because we all know how quickly buildings degrade out here.
And we need to qualify the renters and be on them for maintaining the property, inspections, all that, because I agree with you, you know, this is our investment. And if they trash it, you know, you gotta.
Right, which in itself is another headache for this board.
But they could trash
So-
the homes, and so, you know, there's some houses up the west side 20, I said, that aren't being maintained either.
No, but it's not, it would not be our responsibility then. It's the homeowner's responsibility. So
The blowback from that situation, though, does come back to us, I think.
ultimately, so, you know, I'm not opposed to rentals. I'm just saying that I feel, I'm definitely much more embracing sales, and for multiple reasons.
I think you
And I
make
like
really good
513.
points about how hard it will be to maintain rentals, and the fact 513s, if they're getting going, which there has been a lot of support for them, that could be the rentals. But, and you know, yeah, I don't know. I think you make a lot of good points, and you've been saying it all along. It's just, but you make good points too, Chris, that, you know, it might not be the best for Block Island not to have affordable rentals, but I mean, we've been spinning our wheels on the rentals for so long. It's really kind of what slowed down the project the whole time. So I don't know. Hard to.
When do we think we need to make that decision?
Not now.
I don't, say again? Good. That's the answer I wanted. Good.
Well, I agree with the 513 theory that, you know, if we have 16 units here and we potentially put 16 different families out of 513s and into home ownership, we're going to free up a ton of rentals in the 513 market. Maybe that would satisfy the need for rentals just by simply doing that. I personally don't think we should get into the landlord business. I understand we need rentals. I'm just optimistic that we could create the rentals in the 513s by building these units for sale. So I personally think we should sell all of these, but.
Okay, well, that's going to be a good discussion for the future once we build them.
Well, I think we can, I think we have to have a real direction, because that may change how you approach the building of these. You know, whether it's a rental.
We're gonna maintain them
or-
or they.
Well, not just the maintenance, but the size of them, the storage capabilities, et cetera. To me, that does make a difference. Because if we're gonna sell them, then it has to be a unit that somebody is willing to purchase. And not feel like a row house, you know? So
I
I
think the
think
basic design is pretty good. I mean, yes,
townhouse style.
it
yeah.
can be improved. But we're offering affordable housing. It's not, depression skid row housing. And what Barbara has to do is give us basically a cookie cutter approach. Actually, a lot of good thinking, I thought, went into what she did. And my point is that this is the enclosure that you buy or rent. I don't see having to make too many changes based on whether it's rented or purchased. I don't understand why we would do something different.
No, you're probably right.
And I just don't know. I mean, we want to build quality because renters are hard. We want to build quality because we want the houses that people buy to be sustained. But for us though, if we do rentals, we have a budget and we have a process to make sure the renters, are good and we maintain the units.
Yeah, I think a couple very minor tweaks. Somebody had mentioned the front porch, something like that off the front with possibly a simple divider to split the porch into half so people aren't. I don't know,
Yeah,
but it would add a lot to the front facade of the building.
yeah.
Might make it a little more useful too. I know coming into your front door and driving rain without any kind of
Yeah.
cover is difficult.
Okay, so those will be future discussions for us. The next thing is Rhode Island housing. So these numbers don't have any Rhode Island housing grants in them. Well, that's the question. Do we want to apply to Rhode Island housing for grants or any other? I can't see applying for loans, but grants I could see applying for. Is there any interest in that? Personally, I don't. So we don't have an attorney yet. Still, I'll address that in a minute. But I would prefer not to take Rhode Island housing money, and the constraints that come with it.
I agree as well. It took us 2 years per submission. It will be the same again. It will, because they haven't announced the next round of funding, then you have the time to get your application in, then they have the lag before they make announcements. And I don't see that our situation will be radically different. That, they're going to suddenly smile on us and give us a grant. Additionally, the grants come with many strings. And I think if we can create a plan here that gives us autonomy and these numbers are looking much more favorable, then I like our independence.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Sawcloth are, they have put together those applications for the past two rounds. And obviously they're not doing that for free either. So we have to, that would have to be something that goes into the component of the decision matrix of whether we choose to go that way or not.
I think Keisha, you might remember better than I, but I think we were in the vicinity of like 30 grand.
Yes. Yeah.
About 30 grand for their consulting services.
I think something, if maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but one thing people liked at the financial town meeting was that maybe we could, if we used our own money, we could eliminate like having somebody who hasn't lived here come just move in.
Yeah,
Does anybody else get that sense?
Yes.
Like that, like, oh, if we use our money, then we can like house our people.
and in fact, I tried to convey that with the caveat that we have to obey the law. and we don't have, again, we don't have a lawyer yet. But I think for now, I think we should kind of set Rhode Island Housing aside, at least until we understand the freedom and flexibility it gives us to do these without Rhode Island Housing. So that's what I um, uh, that's my preference.
These are our concerns. Are they valid? And right now, we think this, we think that, we're not sure. I think we should ask them.
Yeah, so they were supposed to visit the island this month, but it hasn't happened yet, no. So they were supposed to come over and look at the site, but that hasn't happened. So, yeah, a person from Rhode Island Housing. But it hasn't been scheduled. But yeah, I don't have any, I think this talking with them is not an issue for me. But I would like to have some fundamental understanding just of the legal underpinning.
I'm lost.
And the timing too, because again, it's a good 2-year timeframe that will set us back again.
Yes. And the finance.
So do we need a motion to say we're not going to do that or just not? We're not. Okay. All right. So the last thing on the O'Brien Affordable Housing Development Project is the name. And I'm happy with the name because that's what we're started to call it. But I did go back and look at our minutes from like 2018 and 2019. And sure enough, we were calling it the Ball O'Brien Affordable Housing Development. Yeah.
I think it was mostly O'Brien. It began as O'Brien and then it morphed.
Yeah. But it morphed 6 to 7 years ago.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. It was 2008. The minutes I was looking at were from 2018 and 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
That research for you.
Because it was the O'Brien kids and their parents.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about them. Yeah, too, as well. Okay, so,
Yeah, that was the grandparents that owned the property that went to the kids that were O'Briens. So originally it was Ball and.
So what do we call it?
the O'Brien, so I have a O'Brien, I thought we decided it like 2 weeks, a month ago that we
O'Brien.
said O'Brien Affordable
Yeah,
Housing.
O'Brien.
O'Brien, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there was slide. There was definitely slide.
But we're going to call it the O'Brien Affordable Housing Development. Yeah.
It's listed on the agenda, so.
Yeah, so can I make a motion to hold number 6 until our next meeting?
Sure.
All in favor? Thank you. Number 7 is other business.
I think Josh seconded it.
Did it, yeah. 7 is other business. Can I do that?
No, not really. You can have an agenda item that says like raise items for future meetings or for future discussions or something like that, so that we can get something on the table.
Is on O'Brien property.
Yeah, of course, because that's agenda.
So, okay.
I did have one.
All right, yeah.
Another way to spend money. We had talked a long time ago about using stones that were on the O'Brien property to create a wall to the south between the cemetery and us.
Okay.
And I think that would be a nice thing to do. I don't know, who would do it, whether that's something up Baines Alley or whether there's somebody else that would put a wall together, but this might be a good time to do that. Yeah.
Because the original wall, at Cherry Hill got moved back. And,
That's right.
So, I mean, Dave Rock, you come back together.
Yeah,
I thought that was cool.
I think you're right. Anyway.
It's a great idea.
Might
Yeah.
be a good time to do it, before we get.
Yeah. Well, and when we start digging foundations, though, that would probably where we're going to dig up a lot of rocks, right?
If we need more rocks.
Yeah. Do we have a lot already? I don't.
I mean, it might be something to,
Yeah.
if the group is interested in, we could at least ask Vane.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Okay.
Mike Shea was very enthusiastic about that. And I think Mike would help.
Great, terrific. Okay, in this other business section, then I'll bring up an agenda item for the future, because I forgot to put on the agenda our legal issue. So at our next meeting, we'll discuss that. Is that about all I can say?
Is that, the bid, when does the bid close?
This Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have an RFP out for legal services. We had a recommendation from our last attorney for 2 attorneys. And I spoke with both of them, and they're both going to respond. Maybe others will respond too. And we'll address that at our next meeting.
Can I talk about something under other business that I'm not allowed to talk about? I just want to commend the board for putting together everything for that financial town meeting and doing it in, really quickly and making a great PR move for the town. I know that I spoke, against it in the beginning, and I want to know that you guys turned me around off for it. And thank you very much for doing that work. And I'm sorry that I began with that voice.
Thank you.
In your defense, you knew kind of more what was going on in the big picture with the finance.
Yeah,
meeting.
that's what I was concerned about. But I'm
I'm
so pleased that,
We had rose colored.
and that's great. And that's sometimes what it takes. So that's wonderful. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your leadership, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you for
yours.
your persuasive powers, Chris.
Yes.
So,
Are we still on agenda number 8?
Not yet.
Not yet. We haven't got there
We
yet.
haven't gotten there. yet.
Okay, I got a question when we get there.
Okay. All right. Agenda number 8.
I was reading Jerry Noonan's
do we need to go closed session?
closed session.
It's
Wait.
portions.
Do we need to go?
Wait, aren't we on 6 yet? No.
We finished 6, Chris, maybe while you're out. You have anything else on 6?
Okay, I missed that, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We're passing on 6 until next meeting.
So is your issue of a sensitive nature that we should go into closed session?
No, it was just possible property. No, I don't think it is.
If it's possible property, yes.
Gonna say something about Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry Noonan had given us a housing board kind of summary plan. Think he's on right now. And I just actually had a chance to read it, and I saw that we have in our possession an overlook property.
We do? The town does. The
Town
town does, yes.
Okay. I didn't know if that, I didn't know what that was, and so I was just curious.
So that's the property that's sort of behind Ball O'Brien, right on the Great Salt Pond. Is that right? No? Yeah,
That's the one we just bought.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Well, and bought with the
It's-
land
it's-
trust. So there's
Yeah.
a lot of,
Yes.
there's a lot of strings attached.
Yeah, I don't think we want to touch that one.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was just like, is there something I am missing here? And there was also discussion in that of additional land on the Sears Ball property.
Oh,
Is that true?
I don't know about that, but
Um,
Jerry can't talk to us.
on the East Earls Ball property, it has been represented to me years ago that they feel that they do have some additional footprint left on that property. And the likely spot is most closely abutting our common boundary line. They'd have to get the feds to sign on the dotted line to cooperate. We did at one point, when we were trying to design the O'Brien property, one suggestion was that we use the existing driveway into East Earls Ball and kind of make a U,
Mhm.
and that did not go over well. But if we needed more density, we could try to enter into some agreement, I suppose, with East Earls Ball, but not without lots of hoops to jump through.
Got it. Okay.
I have one other thing.
In closed session or?
I don't think it needs to be in closed session, but it would be about possible housing opportunities.
Okay. If you don't think it needs to be in closed session, then let's discuss it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I had a very interesting conversation. I was approached by a couple here on the island who have a long history out here. Families owned a house, I think, since the 60s. This particular couple is childless, and they are in robust health. And we want to keep it that way, but they would like to work with us to will their property to the housing board when the day comes. And that would be a house that would go into our affordable housing pool with all of the deed restrictions that we would normally levy on a house. I mean, what a wonderful,
Wow.
wonderful thing.
Very
So,
special.
so it's another angle. I don't know how many other people are out there in the community that might be in that situation where they don't have anyone particularly that they are gonna pass their home onto.
Well,
Um,
that was the idea of the website, trying to get people to understand that they could make those kind of donations.
Absolutely.
Talk about various ways of donating land, money, services, items that for construction, you know.
The more we get our voice out there, the more people will realize that and maybe make these offers. Yeah.
well, Chris, if we get this down the road and they actually, you know, I've got to get them copies of our standard deed restrictions. And they're gonna go to their attorney.
Okay.
And so when they actually, if it comes to fruition, that, and if they're willing to be not anonymous, I don't know. That could be something fun for the website.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I got. The counters are here, the cabinets are here. I'm gluing them tomorrow.
I will send me I'll take a look at the list, but send me the particular items you need help or want help with on the website. And
Have that written down.
okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you very much, everyone.